Hello, welcome to another English Sparkling with Tweedy video on this annoyingly pleasant spring day, which means the heath is absolutely overrun with people. Right now, because this is in the shade, this little corner of the woods is relatively quiet, but we'll probably have people walk past looking a bit bemused about a man in a, not actually tweed today, this is flannel, a man in a flannel suit sitting cross-legged on the ground drinking ESW. I actually just bumped into a friend of mine and he thrust in my hand a small plastic cup of, it's not damson gin, it's damson port. I didn't even know that was a thing. Port somehow flavoured with damson or made from damsons, I don't know. Which is incredibly sweet and syrupy and a bit like cough mixture, but you know, in its own right quite nice. It would be probably a good addition to a Negroni, something like that. But that is not the topic of today's video, so I'll park that for the time being. Is that going to be close enough? I can't be bothered to get up and move the camera. This is a producer I have featured before, Busi, Jacobsohn, and previously it was their white, their regular brut, and this time it's going to be their rosé. It's a 2019 vintage. I just picked this up on a whim, really. It wasn't a very conscious choice, but I went down to the Oxford Street branch of John Lewis. There is that food hall in the basement. I often refer to this. It's good for last minute English sparkling purchases. They usually have, it's a couple of dozen different English sparklings to choose from. I can't think of anywhere else in London that rivals it. It's not always necessarily what I actually want, but there's always something kind of interesting and different there. So I thought I'd give this a go. It was in the fridge there. Don't always have a great success rate with buying wines out of the fridge. You never quite know how long they've been sitting there for. I don't think it's generally a good idea to keep sparkling wine in a fridge for a very extended period of time. You should just put it in for, you know, the few hours prior to when you're actually going to open it. And if it's there for too long, I think it seems the condition can suffer. I've never quite understood the science of that. I don't know if it's to do with the strong electric lights or something. I've been carrying this in a backpack, so it's probably a little bit shaken up. Might have a slightly dramatic opening here. Oh, just a tiny bit of overexcitement. Bubbles coming out. That's got a nice pinkish gold, a rose gold sort of colour, as you would expect and hope for a rosé. Sorry about the state of the stemware, as always. Healthy mousse on that, decent stream of very fine looking bubbles in this light. Something like 14 degrees today, so I can't rely, as I have throughout most of the winter, on just the ambient temperature to keep these things cool. Okay, so yes, pinkish gold. The sun is nicely shining into it, which is probably helping it look a bit more appealing. What do we get from that first aroma? I would say that's a pretty classic rosé English sparkling aroma. Red berry fruit. I always want to say wild strawberry to make it sound sort of more dainty and elegant. But I think it's probably a mixture of strawberry, raspberry, all the usual stuff. It was there straight away as well. I haven't really given this a swirl yet, although as I said, the bottle had probably been shaken about a little bit in my bag. And with a bit of a swirl, a little bit intense. I feel like that's going slightly melony, with a little bit more aeration. Watermelon, gala melon, I'm not particularly good at distinguishing different types of melon. We've definitely got a fruit bowl there though, red berry fruits. Something possibly a little bit like melon. There is, as always, likely also a bit of a backdrop there of orchard fruit, maybe a little bit of red apple. But it's not a bad start. Fresh, quite dry, more appley, I would say, on the palate. I'm getting more of a sort of crunchy red apple kind of palate there, and around the edges, little hints of berry fruit. And again, it does feel something a little bit like melon in there, which is odd. It's not searingly zingy. I would describe that acidity there as it's like a squeeze of lemon juice on that fruit salad. That's how the acidity is manifesting. Yeah, and there might even be other as yet unidentified fruit, unidentified fruiting object in there. That's pleasant enough. I'm not sure I'm currently completely blown away by it, but it's fruity. It's a bit of a fruit bowl, doing, I suppose, most of the things you'd expect for a sparkling rosé. Not overly sweet. I think they've got the sweetness level just about right. Not getting a massive amount of acidity, as I say. It's not really hugely zingy, but I suppose you could call that balanced then, couldn't you? Certainly not overdone. perfectly pleasant, perfectly drinkable. It was on special offer at the Waitrose, and I think it was just shy of 30 quid, something like 28.99 or something like that. Sorry, I say Waitrose, I mean the John Lewis Food Hall, which is basically a Waitrose. Those special offers on wine usually apply throughout all the Waitrose / John Lewis stores. I think Night Timber is also on special offer, so I picked up a bottle of Night Timber for another day while I was there. That was down to slightly under 30 quid as well, I think. So yeah, I think that's decently made. If you're into that kind of fruit bowl sort of thing, you might well like that. I'll perhaps come back later if I have any further thoughts, but if not, cheers.